Hello, Darshana, can you hear me? Good evening, welcome to class. Is this your first class? Okay, so today we'll be studying business law. I'm just holding the class for a while. I just want to see if other students are coming or not. Okay, so I'll just start in a while. Alright, in just 1 or 2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes I'll just start off. So Darshana, you are pursuing BBA? Okay, so you're doing something else side by side? So I just asked, are you doing something else apart from this course? Okay, that you will be having after this one, I guess, isn't it? Okay, Darshana. So we'll just start off. I don't think others are coming. They must be enjoying the weekend. Alright. So today we are going to, since this is your first class, so you have just left out some of the topics which were covered in the previous classes. In the previous classes, we have discussed about like we have discussed about what is a contract and what is business law, what is its scope, that all has been covered. We have discussed partnership not today, and the various principles of insurance, that also we have discussed. Now today we will be studying about the different essentials of an insurance contract. What are the things which should be there if a contract has to be registered as a valid contract? Okay, not only insurance but in other types of contracts also, business contracts, any type of contract. So let us just first start with this one. So this is free consent. So you understand the meaning of consent. Consent is when you agree to do something. So when you are entering into a contract, that shouldn't be forced on you. Nothing should be forced. It should be by your free sweet will. Okay, it should be your own sweet will. So what are the essentials of a free consent? There should be consent. It must be free. It shouldn't be forced. So there are different types of situations in which it is believed that the consent has not been given freely. It is forced. So now we are going to see that. Alright. Tamila, good evening. How are you? Welcome to class. You are a little late. Yeah, good evening, Tamila. You must have come late from the office. Is that so? Okay, alright. You told me you have joined your dad's office, isn't it? Alright. So now let us, today we are discussing about the essentials of a valid contract. Okay. So the first thing is the free consent. So now we have just started with this. So you just follow it. So this is the definition for consent. Now it is consensus ad idem. Consensus ad idem is free consent. Always a contract should be backed by free consent. So section 14 says that the consent is said to be free when it is not caused by. These are the exceptions to it. So the first is coercion, then undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, and then mistake. So you understand the meaning of coercion? Darshana, Tamila, do you understand that? Have you ever heard of this one? Okay. Coercion is when you are forced to do something on a gunpoint. Like when suppose somebody is kidnapped and then the family members are given a call for ransom. So that is a case of coercion. Yeah, pressurizing, exactly. So that is coercion. Then undue influences, when there is undue influence by a person. It is like somewhat like a blackmail. Suppose father pressurizes the son for a particular thing, and if the son doesn't agree, he may just like do emotional blackmailing. So that is undue influence. Then fraud is there, misrepresentation is there, like deliberately misrepresentation is done. Sometimes like the hidden facts are not presented before the other party. So that is misrepresentation. You are hiding or concealing the important things of the contract. Then mistake, this is not deliberate. It can be just like that, and it can be by either of the parties. So now we see all of these in detail. So coercion in simple word means forcibly compelling a person to enter into a contract. Okay. So here is an example. X threatened to kidnap Y's son if he does not lend rupees 50,000 to Z. So Y agrees to lend the amount to Z. Though the coercion proceeds from X against Y's son, yet the agreement is entered under coercion. So X is threatening Y, like he has kidnapped Y's son, and he's saying give 50,000 rupees to 50,000 rupees to Z. So now over here there's no direct relationship between Y and Z, but still the payment is made under coercion. So the agreement is entered under coercion. Okay, that is coercion. So did you understand, both of you? Okay. So now this is the definition of coercion. You can just read it and then I'll just proceed forward. Once you are done, let me know. Done? Okay. Alright. So now when is consent caused by coercion? Like committing or threatening to commit any act forbidden by Indian Penal Code. So this case will make it very clear. X threatens to kill Y if the latter does not agree to sell his diamond ring for 1500. So can you believe diamond ring for 1500? So this is, and there is threatening. So this is like forbidden by the Indian Penal Code. So this is like a situation of coercion. The agreement entered here is under coercion and hence invalid. Okay. Now can you just read this case? It's a very famous case. Ranganyakamma versus Alvar Setti. So you can just read it, and if you don't understand, let me know. This shows coercion. Did you read it? Okay. Now unlawful detaining or threatening to detain any property. Muthua versus Muthu Karuppa. So in this case, same thing has been done. An agent refused to hand over the account books of business to the new agent in his place unless the principal released him from all liabilities, and such release had to be given before the new agent could get the books. So in this case, the old agent, the previous one who has to be replaced, he is doing an act of coercion. So this act is voidable. It's not valid. Now what are the consequences or the effects of coercion? First is the contract is voidable at the option of the party whose consent was obtained by coercion. Then next is any benefit has to be restored back. Alright. And what else? If the aggrieved party does not opt to set aside the contract, it works as a valid contract. If the party who has been forcibly made to enter into the contract, if they do not want to claim it, then it will be a valid contract. So that is another situation. Like, does threaten to commit suicide amount to coercion? Yes, it is coercion. It is emotional blackmailing. So that is, and again, something wrong. Now what is undue influence? It is a situation in which a strong mind overpowers the weak mind, and the person induces him to do which he would not have done if left to his own judgment. So it is a kind of mental coercion. So the presence of undue influence at the time of contract has to be proved by the party alleging that undue influence existed. You have to prove it. If you are saying in the claim that I was like harassed, I was made to do this or that, then that point should have to be proved in the court, because court believes in evidences. It has to be proved. If you are not able to prove it, then that contract will be valid, and hence it will be acceptable. Now you can just read the definition of it. And one important thing is undue influences, that one party is at a dominating position. Okay, they are at a higher position. Suppose the boss influences the employee. So that is a situation of undue influence. The father is father is influencing his children. Mother is doing that. So that all. Okay, just read it, the definition. Okay. So did you understand? I'll just go forward. Darshana and Tamil. Now, person is deemed to be in position to dominate the will of another. Like if it's this type of a situation, like master and servant, money lender and borrower, police officer and accused, income tax officer and assessee. So in all these cases, the other person is, the first person is at the commanding position, isn't it? So he has the authority to influence the other person. And the relationship is of fiduciary nature. Fiduciary means when there is trust and confidence between the two parties. So that is again a case of, acceptable. Like father and son, advocate and client, doctor and patient. Now here is a case, Modi versus Cox. Just read it, Tamila. Darshana, please read this case. So this will be clear. I told that fiduciary relationship has to exist between the two parties. Now fiduciary relationship is the relationship of trust and confidence. Like doctor and patient. Patient has full confidence on the doctor. So he is trusting the doctor. So in this case, there can be undue influence. Yes, we can fight it, but Darshana, everything has to be proved. Okay? It has to be proved that, yeah, evidence is needed. Unless and until you are able to prove your point, court won't accept it. Now, where a party to a contract is a person of mental distress. So when the person's mental capacity is temporarily or permanently affected due to advanced age or mental or bodily illness, then in that case also, if we enter into a contract, that will be a case of undue influence, and hence it will be a non-valid contract, invalid contract. Okay? You must have seen in Indian movies and like some other places also, whenever a person prepares a will, the first line that they use is, I am like making this will in my full senses. That is very important, because without that they cannot be, otherwise it will be a case of undue influence. So if it's so, then again the contract is invalid. Now what are the consequences of the same? Same as the consequences of coercion. Just read it. Is it done? Okay. Now this is the difference between the two. This is of physical character, this is of moral character. Then the intention is to enter into a contract, intention is to take unfair advantage. Now criminal act is involved, no criminal act is involved over here. Like suppose a boss takes undue advantage of a female employee, then that is a case of undue influence. Okay, now the third is misrepresentation. So misrepresentation is very simple. We know when the facts are not properly presented. That is a case of misrepresentation. So it may be innocent or intentional. Okay. So this is the definition of this misrepresentation. Then along with one example, that is like this is unwarranted positive assertion is misrepresentation. Now X says to Y, who intends to purchase his land, that it produces 50 quintals of wheat per acre. X believes the statement to be true, although he did not have sufficient grounds for the belief. Later on, it was found that the land produces only 30 quintals of wheat per acre. This is misrepresentation. The seller said it produced 50 acres, but actually there was just 30 quintals. So this is misrepresentation. Now these are the essentials of misrepresentation. They should be misrepresentation of facts, not opinion. Okay? Like if the party who was selling the land, if they would have said that the land is very fertile, then that is their opinion. But they based it on facts. They said it produces so much and so. So that is misrepresentation. Okay? Then representation is untrue. The representation induces the other party to enter into a contract. Then the party making representation does not intend to deceive the aggrieved party. And the party who relied on untrue statement suffers from loss. This all is very much there in case of marriages, isn't it? Misrepresentation of facts. So now these are the consequences of misrepresentation. They are similar to same like the previous ones. It can rescind. Rescind is it can be like taken back. If loss has been occurred, the amount can be recovered. Alright, Tamila and Darshana, is everything clear to both of you so far? Okay. The fourth type is fraud. Fraud is something which you all know. In this, a person makes to another person a statement which he does not himself believes to be true, to induce the latter to enter into a contract. So he commits a fraud. So intentional misrepresentation amounts to fraud, where it is intentional. So this is the difference between misrepresentation and fraud. Misrepresentation may be non-intentional, but fraud is intentional. Okay? Like if there is a marriage between two people and the bride's family says that our daughter is a very good cook. Okay? So that is their opinion. That is not a fact. That is their opinion, and that is not a that is something that is not intentional. Actually, like the girl is not able to cook, so that is not intentional. So that is misrepresentation. That is not a fraud. Now, if the boy says my salary is 40,000 per month and actually he is earning 20,000, so that is fraud or misrepresentation? Darshana, Tamila, did you get the question? Okay. Now, what are the elements of fraud? Now, just this example will make it clear. X says to Y that his coat is made of pure wool, though he knows that it is untrue. So, Y purchases the coat believing X statement true. So, it is a fraud by X and the contract is voidable. This is the case of fraud and the contract is voidable. So same, it should be related to the material facts, not to opinion. Then to constitute fraud, there must be an active concealment of fact. Before conclusion of contract, a promise made with any intention of performing it. Then other party must have relied and been deceived. Like this cracked hoof of a horse, this is a famous case in which one party sold a horse to another party and the horse had a cracked hoof. But so this was something very important which the seller should have told to the buyer, but the buyer didn't know about it. So it was a case of fraud. Now, when does the silence amount to fraud? Ordinarily, a mere silence does not amount to fraud. As per the principle of caveat emptor, you know this principle of caveat emptor? What does it say? You know? No. Principle of caveat emptor says, let the buyer be aware. Means, like, if you are purchasing something, then it is assumed by the seller that you know the basics of that. You are already aware of the basic things and he need not tell that. Now, what are the exceptions to this one? It is the duty of the person keeping silence to speak in fiduciary relations. Fiduciary relations, again, like suppose the doctor and the patient. The doctor should tell all the material facts to the patient because the patient is having a relationship of trust on him. And silence is in itself equivalent to speech. Now you can read this example. This will make it clear. This is an example of a sale of a horse. Tamila and Darshana, please read that. Hello, Vijay. Good evening. Welcome to class. You are late by half an hour. Is this your first class, Vijay? Okay. So I am now proceeding further. So Vijay, today we are studying about the essential elements of a contract. What are the things which should be there? So the first thing that we have discussed is free consent. The consent to enter into a contract should be free. It should not be binding. So when it can be binding, that is what we are studying. The different situations. If it's a case of fraud, if it's misrepresentation, if it's coercion. So now we are discussing that. What are the consequences of fraud? The contract is voidable. Void is like nullify, zero. It will have no effect, and the party may claim damages if the contract is entered by fraud. So now the last one is mistake. Now when the parties do not agree on the same thing in the same sense because of some misunderstanding, it is known as a mistake. So now types of mistake: mistake of law, mistake of fact. It can be bilateral or unilateral. Means the mistake can be by both the parties or it can be by one party. So what is the difference between mistake and fraud? Tamila, Darshana, what is the difference between the two? Can you tell me? Fraud is intentionally done. Yes, Darshana. Mistake is unknowingly. Yes, that's correct. So in bilateral, it is mutual or it's a matter of fact. In other cases, like the mistake can be of this type. There can be a mistake of subject matter, like regarding its existence, identity, quality, quantity. Then there may be impossibility of performance. That is also one type of mistake. So unilateral mistake is no mistake when it is done by one party. So if it is by misrepresentation or fraud, only then it will be deemed to be a serious mistake. Okay. So this is over. Now we go to the next essential of a contract, that is consideration. So the first was free consent. Free consent means the consent to the contract should be free. It shouldn't be forced. Now the next thing is consideration. So you understand consideration? Consideration is, Tamila, what is consideration? Vijay, what do you think consideration is? Agreed, assumed. No, consideration is what is like the cost of the contract. It can be a service, it can be a like it can be in terms of payment. Yes, it can be anything. It is the lifeblood of every contract. So it is quid pro quo, that is something in return. Every contract should be quid pro quo. It cannot be like I will do favor to other party, but the other party is not going to give me anything. It can be in cash, it can be in kind, but it should be, there should be some kind of favor. Like X agrees to sell his TV set to Y for 8,000. So TV set is the consideration of Y and 8,000 is the consideration for X. Okay? Tamila, Vijay, is that clear? Vijay? Alright, so this is the definition of consideration. when at the desire of the promisor, the promisee or any other person has done or abstained from doing, or does or abstain from doing, or promises to do or abstain from doing something, such act or abstinence of promise is called consideration. So either the person will perform something or they will abstain from doing something. They will not do something which is needed by the other party. Okay. Now let us see it in detail. It may be an act, means doing of something, and abstinence. Abstinence is promising not to do something. When you agree not to do something, that is abstinence. So consideration can be that also. Then promise. The promise of each party is the consideration for each other. Okay? Is it clear? Kamila? Vijay is saying yes. Okay. Now what are the essentials of this valid consideration? The first point is must move at the desire of the promisor. Like X house catches fire and Y helps in extinguishing it without being requested to do so by X. So Y cannot demand any payment for his voluntary service. Okay? Since this party which suffered a loss, X, they didn't ask Y for any help. Y did it at his own will. So this is a voluntary service. He cannot claim any money from them. It must move from the promisee or any other person. For making a valid contract, consideration must be there. It is immaterial who furnishes it. Like the person, like in this case, if Y has been asked to help, then the money could have been, the help could have been done by Y or by some other person. Here is an example. A stranger to consideration can sue provided he is a party to contract. Okay, now let's see how is it possible. X pays 50,000 to Y, directing him to build a house for Z. So there are three parties, X, Y and Z. So Y agrees to do so. So X is giving 50,000 and Y is making the house. So house is the consideration for this 50,000. So both the parties are doing something for each other. The house has to be made for Z. So Z is a party to a contract but stranger to consideration and he can enforce the contract. Okay, he is involved in the contract. So this is a case, Chinaya versus Ramaiya. So this is that case. Alright. Mohammed Shafwan, good evening. Welcome to class. You are late by 40 minutes. What happened today, dear? Muhammad, did you hear me? I am asking something. What went wrong? Yeah, good evening. You are late by 40 minutes. What happened? Okay, let's continue. He is not interested in answering. So the action which has to be performed can be a past, a present or future. So like past, the example is, okay, alright Mohammed. So today we are discussing the essentials of a valid contract. Okay, so we have discussed about the free consent. Now we are on consideration. like award in cash for saving the house from fire. So in this case, the event occurred in some past, in some point of time in the past, and the efforts were done at that time only. The award is being paid to Y now. So this is a case of past performance of the contract. Then present, when there is cash sales. Then future, it can be X promises to deliver 100 quintals of rice to Y after a month, and Y promises to make the payment a month after the delivery of rice. So this is a contract for 2 months. X is making the delivery after a month, and after that 1 month, the Y is making the payment. So it need not be adequate. Like law only requires presence of consideration and not the adequacy of it. Selling a car for just 5,000. So it is alright. There is consideration here, that is important for law. From the prospect of law, that is to be considered. Even if the amount is very less than the actual, then still the contract is valid and enforceable. It is very legal in the eyes of law. Then it must be something that is real. It means it should be something that has value in the eyes of law. Can you give me an example of the same? Real consideration. Can you give me an example? Anybody? Like buying apartment or a house or a land. Yes. Like some example can be, if somebody promises to give a pillow, like in consideration for something. The consideration for a contract is a pillow. So that is not a very it's something that is not very real in the eyes of law. It should be something that has got physical existence and is of value. Then uncertain consideration. The consideration should be uncertain. It should always be certain. It should be fixed. It shouldn't be vague. You do this for me, I will do that. No, it shouldn't be that. It should be defined. What I'm going to do, what I have to do in return, that should be clearly defined in the contract. Then illusionary consideration. Illusionary consideration, like you make the project for me tonight, I will get 2 stars for you from the sky. Is it something that is possible? Yeah, so that is illusionary. And then it must be lawful, like smuggling and murder. That is not acceptable. It must be something which the promisor is not already bound to do. So where a person who by his official status or by operation of law is under a public duty to act, the discharging of that duty cannot be regarded as consideration. Like there is a person who has the who is in the customs department, and he is, so what is it? What is his duty? He is in the customs. He is the custom officer. So what is his duty? The duty of that person. Can you just tell me? Yeah, I asked a question. So if the person is a customs officer, you understand customs officer? He's in the customs department. So if he is serving that, then it is already a part of his duty to catch hold of the smugglers, to arrest them. So if he takes 50,000 rupees from an outside party for the same work, that 50,000 is not a appropriate consideration, because that is already a part of his duty. He is not doing any favor. He is not doing something extra. Okay. Now, stranger to contract cannot sue. The stranger to contract, one who is like a party to the contract, they cannot sue. Now, what are the exceptions to this? When trust is created, beneficiary can sue. Like example is, X transfers all his property to Y to be held in trust for the education of X son, Z. So there are three people here, X, Y and Z. So here Z, though he is not a party to the contract, can enforce the trust against Y because he is the beneficiary under the trust. This contract is directly affecting him, isn't it? The money has been kept for his education. So in this case, if something goes wrong, Z can make a claim. Alright, Darshana, Muhammad and Vijay. Sue means to take a party to a court, to file a case against a party. That is suing. Now, where a charge is created on a specific immovable property, like B borrowed some money from L against a property. So before paying it back, he sold it to X. So now L can sue X because he was having the knowledge of the previous contract. Yes, if he didn't have the knowledge of the contract, then it would be a case of fraud. And then in that case, nothing could be done. So this is. Then family arrangements, like invest equally for mother. So everybody can make a claim in that case. Now agency. Third party can sue the principal if the contract is according to the authority, or agent if not. Agency relationship. The case of life insurance corporation. Every time what happens, like in India, LIC is the biggest life insurance company. So this life insurance company, they appoint various agents. Now these agents go to the people and they convince them to take the policy. So if something goes wrong, then the person who is taking the policy, they can make a case against the agent. Okay. Now acknowledgement. What is that? A receives money from T to be paid over to P. Now A admits of this receipt to P. P can recover from A, who shall be regarded as an agent of P. A is receiving the money from T, and that money has to be paid to P. So in this case, A is becoming the agent of P. Money can be recovered from him. Now, no consideration, no contract. This is the punchline. If there is no consideration, then there is not a valid contract entered into. Now, what are the exceptions to this rule? Number one is natural love and affection. It says it is valid if it satisfies the following conditions. Like first, it is in writing. The contract is made in writing. It is registered under law. It is made out of love and affection. It is between the parties standing in near relations to each other. Like in the case of a will, when a person makes a will, then what does he do? He is making a case of like he is making a will, and he is saying that after my death, or rather when my son turns 14 years of age, then all the property will be transferred to him. So in this case, what is the son doing in return? Is he giving any consideration? No, he is not giving any consideration. He is just like he is getting all that out of the natural love and affection by his parents. So this is a case of, this is a very valid contract. Alright. Vijay and Muhammad, are you there? Okay. Now compensation for voluntary services, time barred debt, completed gifts. Like this is charity type of a thing. If something is given due to out of charity, then again there is no consideration, but that contract is absolutely valid. Now this brings us to the end of this one. You can just read it. What we have discussed so far, that is just a gist of it. Just please read this one. Done? Okay. Now what are the exceptions to this one? No consideration, no contract line, no natural love and affection, compensation for services rendered, time, like suppose if I talk about army, if the army, they do some kind of charity work in case of any calamity, like suppose there's a flood in the country or something, so that is, they are rendering their services, so they are not taking any compensation for it. So that is an like it's a case of no consideration, no contract. Then gifts, agency relationship that I told you. Then remission is something else. No, Vijay, no assignments as such. Maybe I'll be uploading the assignments this week. You can just solve it then at classchatter.com. You know about that? You must have been given a password and ID for classchatter.com, isn't it? It is Darshana, it is a portal on which the assignments are uploaded by the teachers of IIMTS. Yes. So you will be given a password and a login ID for the same, and using that you can just write a mail to the coordinator of IIMTS Vijay. Okay? She'll help you out with this. So you can just take your your login ID and your password, and with the help of the same you can enter into that portal. You can solve the assignment then and there, and then the teacher comments and marks will also be visible to you. Then and there only, means once the teacher checks it, it will be visible to you. So you can just take help of the coordinator for the same. Classchatter.com. Class chatter. Okay, I'll just write it. So we are done for today. We'll be meeting in the next class. Your next class will be on Thursday. Thursday with me. I'm talking about my class. It will be on Thursday at 8 o'clock your time, 8 p.m. Alright. So till then, take good care of yourself. Have a great week ahead. Thanks for your time, all of you. And please fill the feedback form which you'll be getting at the end of the class. Okay. Thanks. Good night. Take care of yourself. Please fill the feedback form. Bye.